Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So, this is the second part of the second lecture, that is the Ghazalian and Cartesian doubt and certitude. In the first part, we looked into the Ghazalian certitude, but it was a beginner's guide to the Ghazalian certitude, that is Yaqeen in Arabic. We should also question whether certitude or certainty is the exact translation of Yaqeen or not. So, coming towards the Ghazalian doubt, so there were two causes for his doubt mainly, that are the interior and the exterior causes. The exterior causes were those sects that were prevailing in Ghazali's time. The interior causes are of our concern. The interior causes of his doubt are because of his criticism on many factors, like his criticism on the taqlid, his criticism on reason, his criticism on the sense perception. So all these factors lead the doubt in Ghazali. So because he criticizes the limitations in the taqlid, the inherent limitations in the taqlid, the limitations in the reason, the limitations in the sense perception. So, after all, he suggests his own formula for his certainty. So, first of all, his criticism on the taqlid. So, Ghazali's criticism of taqlid is very methodological. He says that there are inherent limitations of taqlid when you reach to the higher reality, or when you are in a quest for higher reality. So the taqlid is not for gaining higher reality. So for that, he suggested taqlid for common people. He does not suggest taqlid for himself, but that does not mean that he abandons the taqlid. Many critics criticized Ghazali on his criticism of taqlid, because they say that this admissibility of taqlid for one group and prohibiting it for another leads to the crystallization of caste system within Islamic society. So this criticism is answered by Naqib al-Atas, the Malaysian philosopher who is alive, in his book Islam and Secularism. So he says that hierarchy is, so this is page 101, Islam and Secularism by Al-Atas. So Al-Atas says, in respect of the human order and society, we do not in the least mean by hierarchy that semblance of it, wherein oppression and exploitation and domination are legitimized as if they were established principle ordained by God. The fact that hierarchical disorders have prevailed in human society does not mean that hierarchy in the human order is not valid, for there is, in point of fact, legitimate hierarchy in the order of creation, and this is the divine order pervading all creation and manifesting the occurrence of justice. So, basically, what he wants to say that the divine hierarchy is not violating or exploiting certain groups, but that hierarchy is actually a legitimate. So he says that the hierarchy can be found even in nature. So this criticism was answered by Al-Atas in his book Secularism in Islam. There there were many reasons why Ghazali criticized Taqlid. One reason was that Taqlid is an avenue to both truth and error. So he says that Taqlid can lead you to follow the false taqlidat, that is ideas. Taqlidat is ideas, while taqlid is like following or copying. So he says that blind taqlid can be detrimental. So he questions the unreliability of taqlid. He seeks to sift out these taqlidat, in other words, to remove the false taqlidat. So his admissibility of taqlid for one group and prohibiting it for another does not create an oppressive hierarchy. So Ghazali actually criticizes all modes of knowing that were in his practical reach. But this criticism and doubt is within the Islamic faith, which is unlike the Cartesian doubt. The Cartesian doubt is not within a faith. So, by this, I don't mean that Descartes was atheistic. I mean, he doubted everything. He doubted his own body, he doubted the existence of God, he doubted his surrounding, which is unlike Ghazalian doubt, which is within the Islamic faith. Ghazali never doubted his own body, Ghazali never doubted the existence of God. So, similarly, Ghazali never doubted the afterlife, but his criticism was on the modes of knowing, that is like the sensory perception, the reason, and other faculties like even intuition. So, uh, and the other one, that is taqlid. Taqlid can be compared with the Greek word doxa, that is opinion. So that can be compared. So Ghazali's doubt was unlike the Cartesian doubt. For example, Descartes in the Principles of Philosophy says that this is page 219, the first principle. So he says that in order to examine into the truth, it is necessary once in one's life to doubt of all things so far as this is possible. That means that Descartes wanted to doubt everything. He even wants to doubt mathematics. This is principle 5 220, page 220. So he says, why we may likewise doubt of the demonstration of mathematics. So he wants to doubt even mathematics. Basically he was mathematician, but he even wants to doubt mathematics. But this is again different from Ghazali's stance on mathematics. For example, in Al Munkiz, this is chapter 2, page 15. So, this is the subdivisions of their sciences. So, he says, as for mathematics, it relates to the science of arithmetic and geometry as well as the science of astronomy. No part of it has any negative or positive connection with religious matters. Its sole concern is with matters of proof, which can by no means be denied once they are understood or and recognized. It has yielded two detrimental consequences. The two detrimental consequences, I have explained them in the first lecture, but what is of our concern here is that he says that about the mathematical proofs, he says, which can by no means be denied once they are understood and recognized. So he says that the demonstrative sciences are very much authentic. So to me, in this case, Ghazali was the precursor of the mathematical sciences, or say the new physics, because the new physics has its foundations on mathematics. The fun fact is that both Ghazali and Descartes are after absolute certainty. So, in order to search out absolute certainty, they are after absolute skepticism. But this absolute skepticism can't be found in Ghazali. This is solely restricted to Descartes. This absolute skepticism is limited to Descartes because he investigates it to see what's left over. So that is why he even doubted mathematics. That is why he says that even mathematics may be wrong. On the other hand, Ghazali was not a religious skeptic. So Ghazali was having an epistemological crisis, not the ontological or metaphysical crisis. So coming back towards Ghazali's doubt on sense data, that is hissiyat in Arabic, and the self-evident truth, that is zaruriyat. So Ghazali's Ghazali doubts sense data in order to check the infallibility of the sense data with the help of reason as a judge. So, with the reason as a judge, his reliance on sense data proved no longer tenable, because he says that the charge of falsity leveled by reason against sense perceptions could not be rebutted by the senses. So his reliance on sense data shattered. So So he takes refuge in the certainty of rational data, which belongs to the category of primary truths, such as 10 is more than 3. So this is the primary truth. And other examples like one and the same thing cannot be simultaneously affirmed and denied. So I think this is like another version of Heisenberg uncertainty principle. But Ghazali's next step is to doubt the rational data, or say reason. For example, in page 7, chapter 1 in Al Munkiz, he says, if anyone supposes that disclosure depends on formulated proofs, he has narrowed the broad mercy of Allah, exalted is He. So he even doubts the rational data or the reason. So he says that reason is reminded by another judge that is superior to it, and that is to me intuition. Intuition is Anschauung in the German philosophy. In other words, in the Ghazalian epistemology and also in the Islamic epistemology, the supra-rational perceptions are the real key to knowledge. And that is also why Ghazali criticizes or reproaches the rationalists in Al-Munkiz. And this is also why we see in the prayer of the Gnostic, in which a person seeks Hakaikul Umur, that is, things as they are. The Ghazalian doubt on the sense perception is similar to the Cartesian doubt on sense perception. Both said that sense perception is not a reliable source, they can deceive. So, both give the rope and snake example. For example, they say that a rope can deceive you by looking like a snake, but the Cartesian absolute skepticism and his dream argument and evil demon argument make him different from Ghazali. In the evil demon argument, he says that maybe an evil demon is controlling us. So, this is one thing. The second thing is the dream argument. So, he says that there is a possibility that we are in a dream, but again, he says that for example, if you see a mathematical proof in a dream and you write it, when you wake up, check it and find out that it is true, then even dreams are true. So, this dream argument that we are living in dreams, so he gives this argument. But this dream argument can be compared with Ghazali's dream stance, which he takes from Quran in Al-Munkiz. This is, for example, this is page 8, page 7, chapter 1, in which he quotes from Quran that says, "We have removed from you your covering, so today your sight is piercing." So in other place, he says that human beings are asleep, and when they die, they awaken. So this is very much similar to the Cartesian doubt, but the main difference between them is Descartes was having a universal doubt. Coming towards Ghazalian and Cartesian certitude, both agreed on the mathematical demonstrations, or say the demonstrative sciences, mathematics. But this is not false that both decided that they would not believe anything that was based on tradition, custom, or example, and both walked into every dark spot to discover the truth. Both held for exactly the same reasons that the senses cannot yield certain knowledge. So both doubted the senses, the sense perception. The main difference between Descartes and Ghazali is that Descartes' mathematical formalization of physics, and the second difference is Descartes' experimental method. So these two reasons differentiate Descartes from Ghazali. So the first is the mathematical formalization of physics, which gave birth to the new physics. The mathematical formalization goes from being a rough and practical knowledge to an exact science. In other words, the modern physics or the new physics is the exact science because it has its basis in mathematics. So this is why in the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, that is the Nishat Sania and Al Tanvir in Arabic, we see that mathematics was a common language, and that is why physics has the more precision than the ancients suspected. Just like the Cartesian coordinates has a 0 point, a natural 0 point from which everything radiates out. So he wants to find out that starting point, that zero, for his certainty. The second factor is the experimental method. The ancients lack the systematized observation or the systematic observation. So Descartes was prescribing an experimental method, a systematic method, which later on influenced Francis Bacon. For example, Hippocrates would never prescribe medicines during the rise of the dog star, that is Sirius. So it means that the ancients lack the systematic method. It is to be noted that Descartes was working under the shadow of Galileo. It was Galileo, the Tuscan scientist, that praised the preeminent virtues of mathematics. But Galileo was influenced by another idea at that time, that was the idea of mechanism, and that idea was also visible in Descartes.